A very good morning, students. As we have started the oogenesis topic, and there we have learned how that oogonias, that oocyte, primary oocyte, secondary oocytes are formed from the oogonia, and what are the process of that. Now we will discuss the hormonal changes that occur during this process, about menstrual cycle and development of follicle also. As we know that in case of spermatogenesis, sperm get nutrition by the Sertoli cell, but in oogenesis, oocyte get nutrition by the follicular cells. Means the oocyte which is formed from the oogonia get their nutrition by the follicular cells, and follicular cells along with oocyte, they are called follicles. So we can say that as the oocyte matures, follicles will also mature. Means when the oogonia, from the oogonia primary oocyte is formed, then only same time follicles are formed. Clear? Follicles surround the oocyte, and that surround the oocyte, that is called follicular cells. We can say that the oocyte is surrounded by layer of granulosa cell and form of primary follicles. Primary follicles surround by more and more granulosa cell, and it will form a secondary follicle which contain secondary oocyte. Secondary oocyte surround by more and more granulosa cell, means it will get mature more. Then it will form tertiary follicle, and now this tertiary follicle will change into Graafian follicle by the completion of meiosis first. So it is clear that Graafian follicle is the mature tertiary follicle which contain secondary oocyte as well as polar body. Therefore, it is clear that Graafian follicle contains secondary oocyte as well as polar body with a fluid, that is a cavity-like structure called antrum. This antrum contain a very large space within a Graafian follicle. Within a Graafian follicle, it have a cavity-like structure which is called antrum. Now, secondary oocyte is surrounded by a layer that is called theca interna, and theca interna is surrounded by another layer that is called theca externa. Clear? This theca externa and theca interna will further form zona pellucida and corona radiata in Graafian follicle. After when the Graafian follicle is formed, this Graafian follicle will rupture, and secondary oocyte will release from the Graafian follicle, and this release of secondary oocyte is called ovulation. Therefore, the Graafian follicle will change into the corpus luteum, which is also called as yellow body, and this corpus luteum will release estrogen hormone as well as progesterone hormone. But after some time, corpus luteum will also degenerate and form a corpus albicans. This corpus albicans will be formed then only if the secondary oocyte, or we call the ova, will not be fertilized with sperm. So it is clear that from primary oocyte, primary follicles are formed. From primary follicles, secondary follicles are formed. From secondary follicle, tertiary follicles are formed. From tertiary follicle, Graafian follicles are formed. And Graafian follicle consists polar body, secondary oocyte. Clear? It is surrounded by a two layer, that is zona pellucida and corona radiata. For your kind information, a 1 month embryo, that is a female fetus, contains 1700 follicles before birth. Clear? In second month, the embryo consists, or you can say that the female fetus consists 6 lakh of follicles, wherein coming to the 5th month, that same fetus will contain 7 millions of follicles. This follicles is just before the before the birth. After reaching to the 7 million, primary follicle will go to artesia. Artesia means shrinking. So at the time of birth, this female or the same fetus will contain only 2 million of follicles, but reaching to the puberty stage, this female would have only 60 to 80 thousands of primary follicles. From that, only out of 500 follicles, only one develops into egg. These are the information which is necessary for you all. Now, coming to our next topic, that is menstrual cycle. As you all know, menstrual cycle is a rhythmic change in the reproductive tract, or you can say that reproductive organ of a female primates like monkey, apes and human. Menstrual cycle is also called ovarian cycle as well as uterine cycle. Why they are called ovarian cycle as well as uterine cycle? Because since several changes occur in the ovaries, that's why this is called ovarian cycle. And during menstrual cycle, uterine wall also changes, ruptured, and again it regain. That's why this is also called uterine cycle. It will be more clear when I will start this topic. Now, coming to the menstrual cycle, this is a complete cycle within a human which lasts for 5 days, 1 to 5 days, and it come after next 28 days. Means we can say that average interval of menstruation in human female is about 28 to 29 days. Therefore, we can say that it completed at day 1 of menstruation till the next one, that is approx 28 to 29 days. Now, for studying, we have divided the menstrual cycle in 4 different phases. What are that 4 phases? First phase is menstrual phase. First phase is menstrual phase, which lasts long for 1 to 5 days. Second phase is follicular phase, which is also called as proliferative phase, and it lasts for 6 to 13 days. Whereas third one is ovulatory phase, which is the day 14 one, and last is luteal phase, which is also called secretory phase, and it lasts for 15 to 28 days. In menstrual phase, cycle start in this phase, that is menstrual flow occur for 3 to 5 days. It occurred due to the breakdown of endometrial lining of uterus, the blood vessels from liquid which along with unfertilized ovum comes out through the vagina. Menstruation occur only if fertilization does not take place. Lack of menstruation generally indicates pregnancy, but may also due to stress, poor health or disease. Whereas in follicular phase, menstrual phase is followed by the follicular phase. In this phase, the primary follicles in the ovary grow to become fully mature Graafian follicle, and which stimulates the endometrium to regenerate. Therefore, that's why this is called proliferative phase. In this phase, pituitary and ovarian hormones induce the changes in the ovary and uterus. In this phase only, luteinizing hormone and FSH level, that is follicular stimulating hormone level, is at very peak, that is very high. Whereas the ovulatory phase is the phase in which the ova comes out from the Graafian follicle. Now, coming to the luteal phase is also called as secretory phase, and this is called luteal phase because in this phase corpus luteum is formed, as well as large amount of progesterone hormone is secreted by the corpus luteum. Therefore, the maintenance of endometrium wall again starts in this phase. Now, coming to the brief discussion about this hormonal change. In 1 to 5 days, the endometrium lining is lost due to the low level of progesterone. Means, for maintaining the thickness of endometrium, progesterone level should be high. In case of 1 to 5 days, that is the case of menstruation cycle, the level of progesterone decreases so that the wall of endometrium get ruptured and it comes out out of the vagina by forming menses. And the low level of progesterone will stimulate pituitary to release increased secretion of FSH. So the follicles in the ovary will mature and follicles will change into Graafian follicles. Therefore, follicles start to secrete estrogen because the follicles start to secrete estrogen. That's why estrogen level increases, and this secretion of estrogen leads to thickening of endometrium wall again, that is approximately 2 to 3 millimeter, and 2 to 3 millimeter of wall get thickened when the estrogen hormone level increases within the reproductive organ or reproductive tract of a human. And this occur by the help of estrogen hormone only. So this is also called follicular phase, because in this phase the follicles get proper maturation and the level of estrogen is high in follicular phase. Therefore, the estrogen level increases and it will stimulate pituitary gland to decrease the secretion of FSH and increase the secretion of LH. Therefore, LH production will increase. Now, this luteinizing hormone is responsible for rupturing the Graafian follicle so that the ovulation can occur, and this step occur at the 14th day of menstrual cycle counting from day 1. In this level, the level of luteinizing hormone is very maximum, so that we call luteinizing hormone also LH surge. Therefore, the Graafian follicle has changed into the corpus luteum after the LH level increases. Now, the corpus luteum is formed by the Graafian follicle. Now, this corpus luteum increase the level of progesterone hormone. Therefore, endometrium wall will become more and more thicker, that is approximately 5 millimeter thick. In case of fertilization, the progesterone hormone level will be always high, but if the fertilization does not occur, then again the progesterone level will decreases. When the oocyte is coming out from the Graafian follicle, then for 2 days it stay in the fallopian tube. Within 2 days, if the sperm fertilize the ova, then only the fertilization will occur. Otherwise, there will be no fertilization, and the corpus luteum will start to degenerate. This degeneration of corpus luteum will decrease the level of progesterone again. Now the endometrium line will be again ruptured and come out of the body in the form of menstrual flow. A very good